Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Friday morning in the middle of the night, I would say. Joining us from New York City, where we saw one of the craziest playoff games in NBA history on about 26 hours ago, is Tim Bontemps.
The end of this podcast made a prediction about when the beginning of this podcast would start.
That's right.
It was bang on. That's all I'm going to say.
Go on.
We taped the end of this podcast many hours ago, so we're all smarter and older. Joining us from Oklahoma City, across the street from where I'm at right now, is MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. And I would like to point out that I'd hit the under as far as my readiness for the start of this. And somebody was shuffling around his hotel room where he'd just been maxing and relaxing while I was working away.
Yeah, I was working too.
MacMahon signed on to the podcast 1 minute under the exact number that I said that the pod would start at, and he muted his microphone twice in the intervening 3 minutes before Brian signed on. So
you of all people should know you can be proud of 1 minute.
Oh my God! All right, I wouldn't say the Wolves are too proud right now. They're down 0-2 to the Thunder after Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals on Thursday night. This was an impressive performance by the Thunder, but also at the same time, I would call it a paint by numbers. The Thunder did exactly what they do. They defended. They frustrated the Wolves up and down their lineup. Shea got to the foul line, scored 30-something points. It happened to be 38, which tied his playoff career high, but Shea looks the same whether he scores 31 or 37 or 38. Got to the mid-range.
I think it's worth just saying. I think it's just worth saying his line just for across the board. The day after he got the MVP award, 38 points, 8 assists, 1 turnover, plus 25 in 41 minutes and 47 seconds on 12 for 21 shooting from the field, only 1 for 2 from 3. So basically all those shots from 2-point range and going 13 for 15 from the foul line. That is a heck of a line.
And he had 3 steals.
And he had 3 steals.
And 1 turnover in 42 minutes of playing point guard.
It's pretty good.
So that's pretty much the type of game. It may have been like, an A- game. He's had better games, but an A- game. And that's why he's the MVP. Because
look, he got the MVP trophy. The crowd roared. His teammates went crazy. And then he played the part.
Exactly.
A complete MVP type of performance. But you know what? You know who else played the part? All-star Jalen Williams. 26, 10, and 5. 12
by numbers
from the floor. Big part of the defense.
0 turnovers.
Yeah, Chet Holmgren had I don't have his line right in front of me. Chet
22.
Holmgren. There you go. Chet Holmgren. I mean, just the chaos they create defensively. But to me, like Shea playing the part of MVP, obviously, that's what I wrote about. Like, that's huge. He's the number one reason why the Thunder are 6 games away from the franchise's first championship. But he needs his guys with him, and he needs his all-star sidekick. And look, man, Jalen Williams had a rough series for the most part against the Denver Nuggets. Really came through for him in Game 7, and this was a hell of a J-Dub performance. And both Shea and Jalen Williams are just picking apart the Timberwolves in the mid-range. Just picking apart the Timberwolves in the mid-range. And look, those are, if Rudy's in the game, he wants to be in drop. He's never been a guy who's had a lot of success or a lot of comfort challenging these guards in that mid-range area. And these 2 dudes just shredded the Timberwolves there.
Yeah, the Thunder, they only shot 27% on 3, but they were so efficient everywhere else that they still, really didn't have to sweat that much in this game. They had a big third quarter, which they did also in Game 1. They had 30 assists, just ran their stuff defensively. Once again, the Timberwolves chopped down their turnovers, but still the Thunder had 12 more points off turnovers. So for the last 3 games now, by the way, that's 63 more points than their opponents off turnovers.
Yeah. You say only 22 points off turnovers.
Yeah, because the last 2 games they had over 30.
I know, and the Thunder led the league this year in points off turnovers with 21.8 per game.
Yeah.
But in the playoffs, they cranked that up to over 25.
Yeah.
By the way, Jackson actually doing some producing work again. Man, he's on a roll here. Man, when he can just
stop with the shots at Jackson. Enough.
Oh, you stop being a sensitive little wuss. The Thunder hunting Rudy Gobert in pick and roll, 1.25 points per direct pick when Gobert was the screener defender. And again, that's a whole lot of mid-range stuff.
Well,
I'll put it like this.
When Shea gets that mid-range, he's beyond automatic.
Yeah, you do a better job defending Jackson than Gobert does defending Shea or J. Dubbin pick and roll.
Jackson's just staying up till the wee hours of the morning putting this pot up while you're taking your sweet time getting ready. So you don't need to be going.
I was ready before Wendy.
This game, again, like you said, Brian, I think calling a paint by numbers is accurate. The Thunder stuck to their formula. They did what they need to do. And look, we talked. Stats Williams gave you the numbers after game one. Wolves were 11 for 39 on open threes in that game. You think, hey, if the Wolves can hit some shots, maybe the series looks different. The Wolves were 6 for 15 on open threes in game two, according to stats. He just sent me the numbers. Now, that's 40%. However, it's also
the number
60.
There.
Yes, it's 60% less of those shots in the game. More importantly, they're 5 for 24 in the game on contested threes, which is a much better split for if you're the Thunder. You don't want them shooting 75% of their shots uncontested. And the other thing, Stats informed me that he told the Podfather before he came over to here to do the pod is that when you look at Julius Randle, who's obviously had a disastrous game, 2 for 11, 6 points, didn't play in the fourth quarter. Julius Randle, as we know, likes to play a physical game. He likes to get in the paint. He likes to bully his opponents, use his massive frame and strength to get in there and wreak havoc, right? This Thunder team, despite being small, like we've talked about in terms of height, between Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, the two bigs when they have them out there, there's not a lot of places for Julius Randle to use his strength to really try to gain an advantage in this series. And outside that first half, when he was a flamethrower, making shots from the perimeter, he has not done anything over the past 6 quarters. And that's something that Minnesota and Chris Finch has to find a way to try to change. Because if Julius Randle is going to be a semi-non-factor in the series, this series probably isn't going back to OKC.
Yeah, we had a pickup run yesterday here in OKC. And there was a possession in, I think it was the first quarter, maybe it was the second quarter, first half for sure. I sent McMenamin this text. I said, Randall looks like me at pickup because the man smoked like 3 layups on one possession. I mean, he was frustrated. He was frustrated with the officiating. The Timberwolves had a free throw in the first half, a singular free throw in the first half. I didn't think they got a good whistle in the first half. I'll just be honest. I thought Ant should have been at the line at least a few times in the first half. By the way, Ant, I'm going to read his entire post-game media availability. Okay, and that was the whole thing. He didn't talk to the media. Now, that might just be Ant saying, okay, you fine me for one bleeping F-bomb, another $50,000, I just won't talk. But it's a tough look for a face of a franchise not to talk after a playoff loss that puts you down 0-2 in the Western Conference Finals. I think you could sense the frustration.
You remember the whole Marshawn Lynch thing at the Super Bowl where he just said, I'm just here so I don't get fined?
Right.
I think Ant was doing the opposite.
That. Yeah, right.
Ant was like, I'm just not here so I don't get fined.
Or, hey, you fine me for talking, you might fine me for not talking, but whatever.
By the way, Ant up to $430,000 in fines this year.
Yeah, and stay tuned. I think he might get fined for skipping media tonight. Again, he's got those Sprite commercials keep running. He'll be all right. Those Adidas are selling. You know, I like those Ants. So actually, one of my boys has a pair. Got blisters the first time he wore them, but that's neither here nor there.
That's
what? Get back. What are we doing?
It is comprehensive coverage. Try it sometime.
Okay.
Listen.
Okay.
You could sense the frustration. Old Jaden McDaniels. Hey, 10 of 16 with McDaniels as the primary defender, including 6 of 10. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And he had enough of Shea and just gave him that little kind of it was a bit of a cheap.
Well,
Like,
I will
Flagrant
say
one was
this.
appropriate. Little cheap shot shove in the back.
Jaden McDaniels, who struggled with Shea all season long, by the way, which is not an indictment of Jaden
Right,
McDaniels.
exactly. Him and the
Everybody
rest
does.
of the NBA.
He got frustrated and he shoved Shea down and got a flagrant. I will say this: Jaden has been known to be a little emotional.
Mm-hmm.
You may recall that 2 years ago that he punched a wall and broke his hand.
Yeah, and the wall won. He punched the wall and the wall won.
In all honesty, like if he got his emotions out this way, but Julius was very frustrated. Jaden was very frustrated. Ant, I think, very clearly is frustrated. He was frustrated in game one. He was so frustrated he didn't talk to the media. This is what the Thunder do to you. On Scott Van Pelt tonight, I compared the Thunder's defense to a Kraken.
Oh,
because it's
wait,
just
that's a
like
hockey team, right?
Yes, it's just like
what?
Like a sea monster. It's just like
what?
Enormous, and it's got all these tentacles.
You seriously went on SVP and said that the Thunder defense is like a mythical creature?
That's correct.
Kraken.
It's like a Kraken.
Listen, dude, they are. They just
God.
swarm. There's
just
like
those
another body
tentacles
coming
everywhere. It's
They're
everywhere.
Tentacles. Interesting.
Like you think that you got away from them and you throw a pass, they pick it off. You think you're past your defender, and the sucker sticks his hand in there and knocks it away on your way by.
Lou Dort got his first, finally, all defensive team selection, first team, right? Jalen Williams, J-Dub, got a second team selection. I would listen to an argument that those aren't the first and second best defenders on the team. I would listen to an argument. I think Lou's going to be there, but dude, Caruso. Especially,
Alex Caruso is the best defensive player on the team.
Especially playoff Caruso.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And then Chet, listen, if Chet's eligible for
Chet Holmgren
defense,
had been healthy this year, he would have made all defense. And Isaiah Hartenstein is probably ahead of Lou Dort too. If you're just starting from defensive players.
I
certainly, but Chet definitely is.
Yeah, I'm going to dial you back on the last one. I'll tell you this, Casey Wallace, I'm not sure he's there yet, but he is on the
there
way.
were times
I'm
this
fully
year,
on record on my Case and Wallace take. So
there were times this year where Shea was taken off the court for defensive purposes, not because he's not good, but because Case and Wallace is that good. And
I've said it many times. Shea is not first team all Thunder defense, but he is a tremendously impactful defensive player. He got 3 steals tonight. That's not unusual. He had 208 stocks this season, steals and blocks, third in the league. Like, he's a great defensive playmaker.
So, by the way, like the guy that Chris Finch played over Julius Randle down the stretch, and for Case, and the point of all this is that it was Naz Reid.
Yeah,
and Naz Reid, I think, is one of 15 on threes in this series or something like that. And that was the guy that Chris Finch went over Julius with.
I'm not sure Naz has made a 3 in this series. He was.
Maybe he's 1 of 15.
I could tell you real quick. He was 0 for 5 in this game, and he was 0 for 7 in the first game. So 0 for 12.
And 4 of 19 from the floor in this series. That's not going to cut it. They need scoring everywhere they can get it. And look, they're 2 big time bench scorers. Naz Reid, we just read his numbers. Dante DiVincenzo in this series ain't a whole lot better. I mean, he's made some threes, but he is 5 of 18 and 6 of 22 from the floor.
They're also just taking the ball from him.
Yeah,
they're taking the ball from him.
That's what they do.
They're averaging 11 steals a game.
And what
they do.
And after he told everybody that he got 13 effing shots, only 13 effing shots in game 1, which that's what he got fined for.
$50,000.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, man. The league, chill out, dudes. But anyways, he said he was going to be more aggressive, and he was. He got up twice as many shots, and he had
18 shots in the first half is not great.
Well, and he was 12 of 26 from the floor, so pretty middling efficiency. His 3 ball's not going down. 1 of 9 from 3-point range. Again, he got to the line for 10 free throws. I thought that could have easily been like 16 or 17. But he is taking care of the ball. He's not been part of the turnover problems. He didn't turn it over one time tonight, which is honestly pretty impressive considering how aggressive he was.
He played well. He played well, maybe not. He played much better tonight.
Yeah, he did.
And
he just couldn't get a 3 ball to go down.
Right.
And like, yeah, if he was much more aggressive. McDaniel shot the ball well tonight. He got scorched on the defensive end, but he shot it well. And other than that, I mean, not a whole lot of production. Nickeil Alexander-Walker gave him something off the bench, but again, for their 2 bench scores to be that big of duds is it's going to be tough to overcome. Gobert has not made any kind of impact so far in this series. He's given them, I mean, he screens offensively, but he's in single digit scoring for the series.
Well, and the problem for Rudy in this series is it's not really a rim protection series.
No, because they'll pull up, they'll get to their spots. Their two go-to guys are they're more than comfortable pulling up 16, 14, 12 feet. Like they love those spots.
Yeah, I mean, they get into the lane a lot. Like they get a lot of paint points, but they're getting a lot of paint points, like you said, getting to 10 feet and rising up. And as we've talked about all year, to go back to the Thunder, the free throw disparity stuff, right? Jay is the one guy who's always getting in the lane as a threat to score. Most of the rest of the time, sometimes Jalen Williams is. Most of the rest of the time, it's guys spotting up around them on the perimeter. So there's not a lot of places for Rudy to really hide, and especially if Isaiah Hartenstein isn't on the court, then you're basically in a 5-out situation all the time. And, it's just a hard matchup for them. It is, as you watch these first 2 games and watch them play out, the things that Minnesota did in the first 2 rounds, or where they had success against the Lakers and the Warriors, those advantages just don't really show up in this series. And it's going to be interesting to see what they can cook up over the next 48 hours. Because right now
they're also, yeah, you're right.
Right now, it's not a lot to be optimistic about.
They're also having an easier time with Randall and Edwards than they did with Jokic.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like Randall, both those guys, Randall especially, like his strength is a huge advantage because there's not a lot of guys who are strong enough to handle him. And Alex Caruso and Lou Dort are 2 guys that are strong enough to handle him despite being several inches shorter. And so and they're also ball hawks who can take especially Caruso's case, who can take the ball off him. So Randall's a streaky shooter. If his 3-point shot isn't falling, all of a sudden things look limited really, really quick. And that's what the Thunder can do to a lot of guys.
I was going to say, the simple fact is that there's not like a lot of easy solutions against the Thunder. There's a reason this team set the freaking NBA record for point differential in a season. And another gem from Jackson, the best producer in the Hoop Collective history.
That's better.
Despite what Bontemps might say, despite any bad mouthing from the USWB.
Yet another great product from Syracuse. I think we can all agree.
He overcame that crappy education.
One of the few.
Yes. Get this. Highest point differential in a postseason in NBA history. The 71 Bucks. That's Kareem, the Big O.
Oscar Robertson,
Yeah. Plus 14.5. The Thunder are number 2 on that list right now. Plus 14.1. The other teams on the top 5, 17 Warriors, 2001 Lakers, 91
17
Bulls.
Warriors were a mildly good team.
Yeah, and obviously all those teams, the Thunder have yet to finish the job, but the rest of those teams did win the championship.
All those teams had at least one Inner Circle Hall of Famer on them too, in some cases multiple. So that's pretty good company to be in.
Yeah, we're talking Kareem and Oscar Robertson, Steph and KD, Shaq and Kobe, Jordan and Pippen. Like
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Pretty good company.
Look, like Shea is well on that path. And then we'll see. We'll see. Jalen Williams is off to a hell of a start in his career. But to put him in that kind of company, maybe he'll end up being a Pippen type of dude. We'll see.
Well, and it was pretty cool to see Shea back up. I mean, a lot of times we've seen these MVP things. Not that Shea obviously deserved it, but you see a guy get this award, get it the night before, you play the next day, you get the award right before the game. Sometimes, like with the ring ceremony at the start of the season, you see guys be off their game or whatever. And Shea's obviously always a pretty monotone, even-keeled guy on the court, and so it wasn't shocking to see him play this well in this spot for many reasons, but pretty cool to see him get the MVP award and then go out and look every bit the MVP and just boss the game in all ways.
By the way, a rare moment of comedy from Mark Daigneault tonight. Not on the podium, at least. I'm not saying in general conversation, but he's the Thunder very very professional. Shea.
Very very. What'd you say? Uptight?
No, I didn't say that. Very professional.
Oh, you said okay.
MacMahon wrote about this and talked about this. Shea gave all of his teammates a gift basket in appreciation for them helping him to his MVP award. There was a Rolex in there, each one of them. There was an iPhone. What else was in there, MacMahon?
Canadian Goose jacket, I believe.
Canada Goose.
I'm leaving.
Canadian Goose might have been a knockoff. That was a Canada Goose.
All right, whatever the fancy thing is.
There was a Canadian goose in there? An actual goose?
No, the jacket.
Pate.
And then there was something else. I forgot what else. Something else nice.
So anyway, they were like 10 grand each, give or take. And so in the press conference tonight, Mark Daigneault was asked whether he received a care package. And he said, I did not. He said, I heard Shea say that everybody loves watches. It's like, guess not everybody.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good for Mark D.
Yeah, it was the hardest I'd ever laughed in a Mark D press conference. By the way, you mentioned Stats Williams before. Guess who has fallen head over heels in love with our guy, Matt Stats Williams, who may try to steal him away.
Presty?
No, I'm sure if we keep Presty away from him, my God, he'll definitely try to hire him.
Well, Presty's not a good judge of talent. He didn't even keep Caruso on the OKC Blue, but go on.
That's a whole nother story. You're telling yourself for your Caruso feature you got coming up.
I like to tease things via the Hoop Collective.
All right, good job. Michael Malone.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, does he love Stats Williams? Does he love Stats Williams?
He knows what's up.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, he was practically had his arm around him like he was a surrogate son tonight. He was
Good.
So happy.
We like that.
Hey, Malone clarified.
We like Stats getting recognized for his excellence.
Malone did clarify. He said his vote would have been for Joker for MVP. Now we didn't pull him after the game because it was a Shea MVP type of performance. He
lives in Denver, so he's got to make sure.
He sure about that. There ain't a for sale sign on the house yet, so he's got to make sure. And he definitely indicated he got a little bit of blowback from the neighbors.
That's right.
The thing about Shea though is his dominance is almost like a quiet dominance, right? It's not like when Ant dominates a game, and we've seen Ant dominate many playoff games. It's loud, right? There's highlights. There's crazy dunks. There's these like long threes. There's just emotion and all trash talk and all this kind of stuff. SGA just kind of cruises through games, as he says, lets the game come to him. The dude only took 3 shots in the first quarter, right? And then he's just kind of waiting for his opportunities. Late first half, goes on a little flurry. Oh, next thing you know, okay, they bumped the lead out. Third quarter, when they've overwhelmed Minnesota in both third quarters. This third quarter, 11 points, couple assists, just fingerprints all over it. And then you look up at the end of the night, the guys, you look up at the end of the third quarter, the guy's got 30. And it doesn't feel like he's been, just it's quiet. You don't feel like he's just been that dominant. And it's just like
he scores 30 every night.
Just in complete control.
And this Mike Breen read this stat right at the end of the game. The Thunder have played 95 games this year, and they've won by double digits in 60 of them. 60.
I mean, look, all season long, we talked about it a lot. And the single reason to not think the Thunder were the massive and overwhelming favorite to win the title was very simply because the combination of they hadn't done it before and was Jalen Williams good enough? That was it. Because they have every other thing you could possibly look for in a team that's good enough and could be good enough for the next several years. And we saw I think we've already seen the rubber meets the road moment in game 5 of the last round, which I think was the West Finals. We talked about it a bunch. They're down 8 going to the fourth quarter against Jokic. Didn't look great. They lose that game. Season's probably over in game 6. They find a way to win that game. And I know they didn't win game 6, but they come home, they take care of business in game 7. And it's a little early. They still got to get 6 more wins. But barring injury, it certainly feels like it's all downhill from here for these guys, the way things look right now.
And the scary thing about Thunder, we'll have plenty of time to get to this stuff later. They're probably going to be better next year, and maybe the year after that, and the year after that.
I was looking at the box score tonight, and I went over the injury report, and I forgot that they have one of the most hyped European prospects since Luka sitting out, Topic.
Well, I mean, he's not going to be Luka, but they do have a lottery pick.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I said since Luka. He's
yeah,
he's
they've got a lottery.
They have a talented lottery pick guard who hasn't played all year.
Yeah, a torn ACL.
And they just have young ascending talent. Like SGA is, and this is something when in Dagenham's more boring, frequent moments, he talks about how SGA is just continuing to get better and better and better. The guy just got MVP, and I'm going to go Thunder jargon here, still has a growth mentality, right? Like Jalen Williams has gotten significantly better every single season. We can go on down the list. I mean, Chet missed most of this season. Like he's going to be better next year. And
these guys are in the Western Conference Finals. They've won 2 games in the Western Conference Finals in dominant fashion. They have one player over 30 on the roster, in Alex Caruso, who's 31, and Kenrich Williams is 30. Every other guy on the team is 27 and under. So,
and they've got a 7 draft picks. And
correct.
I don't know
million picks and everything else, but
I don't know that Sam Presti's ever going to make this big splash trade that we've talked about so much. The people come in wait just because like you don't need to, and like honestly, one of Presti's biggest challenges is going to be managing the payroll.
Yes,
but what a great challenge to have. Like, by the way, ascending talent like Casey Wallace is going to be so good. He's already good. This guy's got a chance to be. He might be an all-star type of player at some point, not too distant.
When you calculate, which is important in today's day and age, when you calculate a player's value with their contract, in other words, what's the bang for your buck? Casey Wallace is what, top 20?
Yeah, you guys have taken my Casey Wallace love and ran with it. I like it.
Listen, man, my taxes don't pay for his high school education.
One thing I'll tell you about Casey Wallace that I've noticed in the last 2 weeks is all of a sudden he's looking like Chris Paul in transition.
Dude, ever since I said all his lobs end up in the 4th row, he's completing them left and right.
By the way, Chris Paul came to the game tonight.
He did.
To celebrate Shea, who, as you remember, Chris Paul came to the when the Rockets did their rebuild. Chris Paul.
That was pre-rebuild. That's when the Rockets made a god-awful trade
right.
because it was the worst contract in business in sports.
Brain fart.
Brain fart at
2 a.m.
I will say, to Fertitta's credit, he learned from that mistake. He learned to take the emotion out of the process. But yeah, that's when the Rockets, when Fertitta and James Harden wanted CP3 gone, so they made a bad trade. But he came here. It was 1 year. It ended up being the bubble year. It was Shea's first year. It was that weird kind of like gap year for the Thunder where they weren't going into their little tanker mode rebuild.
They made the playoffs.
Yeah, they made the playoffs that year. But CP3 was there, and it was Shea's first year, and it was Dort's rookie year. And look, man, CP3 was like, he's got a little piece of this because he definitely was a huge positive influence on Shea and on Dort. Not that those guys wouldn't have had success without having him as a teammate for a season, but he was a great, great vet, great mentor, and has continued to be a mentor, as he's gone to other teams for those guys.
Yeah, well, that just shows the respect level that he has for Shea, and vice versa, that he would come in for this game just to see Shea get the trophy from
Shea had
Adams.
you talk about those rare moments of comedic relief. Shea had one in his post game where he was asked about CP3, and he said, "Yeah." I looked over there. I was like, "Wait, who's that sitting by my wife?" And it's like, "Oh." Then I saw it, and then I saw it was Chris. I was like, "All right."
Oh, he didn't know Chris was coming?
That's what he said.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Maybe sometimes you don't tell the full truth because you're going for a punchline. At least
I got you.
some people might do that.
Yeah, I got you. Because like we at ESPN knew Chris was coming yesterday because he was on Countdown. He was
Maybe it was a surprise. Maybe Chris thought he was getting a Rolex and was disappointed. I don't
know. Would you fly to Oklahoma City from LA for a Rolex?
I'm not a watch guy. So Shea's wrong. He says everybody enjoys watches. I don't like having that stuff on my wrist. Now, if somebody wants to give me a Rolex, I'd be happy to have it. I just won't wear it. I might pawn it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will say this. Looking forward, the Wolves are bound to hit some threes. They're shooting under 30% the first two games. They will hit some, I think. And
I'd recommend
maybe
game 3.
Shea, you're right. Shea is, he averaged 8 free throws a year. He didn't average 15. He's averaging 15 so far in this series. So, we could see, a little bit of a change when they go on the road on Saturday night. But, and look, this is the never say never postseason. If you say,
sir,
don't assume anything. So I ain't. That said, the concept of the Thunder losing 4 out of 5 is hard to see. Wouldn't say impossible because we don't do that, but it's hard to see.
It does have the aroma of a gentleman's sweep.
Maybe. I mean, the Thunder have not always handled prosperity the best. So, but
yeah, they only won 68 games this year.
I know, but I'm talking about in the playoffs.
When prosperity win. When did they not handle it well? When they swept the Grizzlies?
No, I mean they
had to come back to I guess you could say after game 2 when they blew the Nuggets out. I guess I'll give you that one.
We'll see, but obviously they need Julius Randle to play better. They need to start hitting some threes. They need better play from Gobert. And one thing that was strange tonight, Mike Conley, everybody on their roster was in the negative, obviously. Mike Conley was a plus 14. He was 1 of 6 shooting and was plus 14.
Yeah, that was a weird. Sometimes that single game plus minus can be a little bit wonky.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll leave the high test intense series to you, Bontemps, and we're going to talk about game 1 of the Pacers and Knicks. Actually, we're not going to talk about it. We already talked about it, but Jackson is going to smash them together now. All right, welcome back to Hoop Collective, and it's now earlier in the day. We're all younger. We're all ignorant of tonight's results, but we're educated on what happened in game 1 at the game you were at, Bontemps, on Wednesday night, which was one of the craziest games I've ever seen. And I've been saying that a lot, it feels like, in these playoffs.
What about the Indiana Pacers in these playoffs specifically?
Pretty much the definition of having a game wrapped up is 3 possessions in the final minute. I think if you have 3 possessions in the final minute, your winning percentage is in the high 99 percentile. And 3 times in 3 consecutive series, the Pacers have pulled out of victories in those situations. And twice it's happened on the road. So you were just, as we're recording this, we were just on NBA Today, Bontemps. You talked about being in the arena for the shot. You could go over that with us as well.
I mean, the whole thing was just, I want to say it was unbelievable, except it honestly kind of wasn't, because this has happened twice in the past couple of weeks. Like when it got down to 8 with a couple minutes ago, I turned to our colleagues, Jamal Collier and Chris Herring, who were sitting next to me, and I was like, these guys aren't going to do this again, are they? And then when Jalen Brunson got it back up to 9 with 50 seconds-ish to go, I was like, all right, you guys probably got it in the bag. But it is just remarkable. We've spent so much time talking about this Pacers team and the way they play and the pace they play at and the way they just wear you down in these late game situations. And as the games go on, and like there were so many moments in the end of this game that were almost identical to these other collapses. Even Josh Hart ended up catching the ball, but there was almost the identical pass thrown across the court that Max Strus didn't get that Josh Hart managed to corral. It was like, holy crap, this is literally going in the exact same manner as those other games. And then obviously the thing that was wildly different was this just completely absurd Halliburton shot that thought it was going to get stuck in the vaulted ceiling of the Garden and then just drop through the hoop. And from our seats, which are on the opposite end of the court, it was the same vantage point I basically had on the KD shot at Barclays. I thought that shot was a 3 at the time. I thought this shot was a 3 at the time. Tyrese Halliburton shot thought it was a 3 at the time. And, you know, the difference between that game and this game was, as I said to Tyrese after the game, first thing I thought of was that Durant shot. The difference was you guys won the game. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, Milwaukee, Giannis had a couple big buckets late. I think Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday each had big shots down the stretch in that game. Bucks obviously escaped, went on to win the title. But yeah, I mean, that was, even for all the crazy stuff Indiana's done, that was crazy. I mean, they scored 23 points in 9 possessions to end the fourth quarter. Aaron Nesmith was 7 for 8 from 3 in the game.
And hold on, 23 points in 9 possessions.
And the Knicks, yeah,
pretty good.
The Knicks,
my God,
like the Knicks were even getting open shots. The Knicks missed. I mean,
dude,
they
scored their last 6 possessions, and they were all threes except for the toe on the line buzzer beater.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely crazy. And you know, I mean, it was one of those things where literally everything had to go wrong for the Knicks, and it did. They bring in Mitchell Robinson to box out late. He lets Obi Toppin get by him for a dunk. Josh Hart, excellent defensive player, lets Andrew Nembhard get by him for a layup. Those are both late.
Josh Hart slipped on the court 2 or 3 times in the fourth quarter and overtime at different places in the court. I honestly wonder if there was something wrong with his shoes, and I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, I mean, it just like that. You had Karl Towns, a fantastic shooter, misses 2 free throws. OG Anunoby misses a free throw. Like the Pacers couldn't miss. I mean, it was everything that had to come together. I mean, Stats Williams sent me this stat. There were, since over the last 27 years, there had been 1,414 games where a team had led by 9 or more in the final minute of regulation and overtime. And a team had lost every single one of those games until Wednesday night in game 1.
And I'm going to combine it with the fact that this is the 3rd time we've had a stat like this with the Pacers, because before it was 7 points and it was a different number. Mm-hmm. But because the previous 2 comebacks were 7 points, but it's both
7 in about 50 seconds and 7 in about 35 seconds, but it's 3 possessions inside the final minute. And yeah, I mean, you just have to say this is the best team we've ever seen at doing this.
So this is where I make one of my speeches. Over the course of 20 plus years, I've seen a bunch of comebacks. The quintessential comeback that I always think of is the Heat coming back on the Spurs in Game 6 of the 2014 finals, 2013 finals.
13, yeah.
And that was 7 points with about 30-something seconds. There's typically 3 things that you see, not always, obviously, but 3 things that you often see when you have a sort of weird comeback like that. Missed free throws. There's almost always a missed free throw. There's almost always a turnover, which manifests itself in several forms. Sometimes it's an offensive rebound, which not exactly a turnover, but can feel like it. And then a lot of times there's a role player. So in the case of the Heat comeback, the role player is Ray Allen. I know he's a Hall of Famer, but he was a role player. He was a 6th man at that point. 2 offensive rebounds happened in that, and Ginobili and Kawhi Leonard missed free throws. In this game, missed free throw, OG Anunoby, missed free throw, Karl Towns. 2 turnovers, both of them as a result of reviews. That review, Bontemps, was interminable for the one on Siakam.
You didn't quite say it right, but it was good use.
I don't know how you guys felt. I felt, they went to commercial. Like, I don't know how you guys felt.
It took 1,000 years. I mean, everybody around me was pretty stunned that they overturned it. I thought the Knicks, I don't know if the Knicks necessarily deserved a break on that play, so I was kind of okay that they just called it like everybody was just scrambling for the ball. I thought on the Jalen one before, The refs have been pretty inconsistent in that, like, if there's not this one specific thing, but if there's other contact, they're cool with it on these plays. And there was a lot of contact on that play. I was pretty surprised they overturned
The
both
ball
of
had
them.
already been knocked. The ball had already been knocked loose. So I guess that's how they ruled
I
it.
mean, I guess, but look, you can even go to challenges, right? Tom Thibodeau took an awful challenge in the third quarter. Like, he had no chance of winning the challenge. Jalen Brunson pushed off on Aaron Nesmith. They should have called a foul on Aaron Nesmith. As an aside, the refs were awful in this game, both ways.
Oh.
They're awful the whole game.
Whoa.
Like, just is what it is. They missed a ton of calls.
Ooh.
But they had a rough game. I mean, they were all over the place. That review, the OG Siakam review, to your point, took several minutes. If you got to review it for several minutes, you probably shouldn't be reviewing it. You probably should just be moving on at that point and saying it's inconclusive. Which, if it's inconclusive,
Well,
you're not
in
supposed to do
overtime, they missed Miles Turner had a goaltend.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this on the Obi Toppin backdoor play. I think it was Miles. I think it was Mikal Bridges. He fouled Toppin. So
Yeah,
like
smacked him. That was an and one. But look, that sequence in overtime when they missed that goaltend and Andrew Nemhart hit the quarter three on the next possession, that was a gigantic swing. Would have been a stoppage and the Knicks up 6 if they called the goaltend. Instead, the Pacers 5 seconds later are down 1. But look, this isn't about the refs. Like, whether they had a good game or not. And it was an equally, I thought, bad both ways performance by the refs. I don't think the refs decided the game for the Knicks. The Knicks blew the game. The Pacers won the game. And the Pacers have done this over and over and over again.
Right. It's a collapse against the best comeback team, maybe in NBA history. And it's not just the playoffs. Remember, it was January, maybe February. The Pacers had that crazy stretch of games where they had a bunch of these type of comebacks from 3 possession margins in the last minutes. I mean, they've been doing this all season. Reigning cojones factor player of the month, Tyrese Halliburton. Well, he didn't get clutch player of the year, but I told you, boys, I think he's coming for that crown, the full season cojones factor MVP. Dude, our buddy Tom Haberstroh, actually, we'll call him Haberstroh because he wasn't hating in this one. His Substack updated his Halliburton's shooting with a game on the line this season. These numbers are insane. I'm talking about shots to tie or go ahead in the final 2 minutes, including obviously the toe on the line. Massive shooter's bounce that he got last night. 12 of 14 on those shots this season. 12 of 14 with 2 and 1s. 11 of those are jumpers. The exception obviously being the blow by layup to get Papa Halliburton banned from all arenas for forevermore when he had the little chit chat with Giannis waving that towel. But this man, including the free throws, has 32 points on 14 shots that, again, are to tie or go ahead in the last couple minutes. I mean, it's one of the most insane clutch shot making seasons of all time. Maybe the most. Like, it's insane.
Well, no, go ahead.
And dude, listen, I know he thought he won it, but the choke, with Reggie Miller in the house.
I was with MacMahon.
Oh, come on
when
now.
We were watching together.
First of all,
when he did the choke sign, MacMahon's eyes got glossy.
I love Halliburton. I love a dude.
Everybody
that
loves
kind of
Halliburton.
trash talk and backs it up. Like, how could you not let? And you know what? That dude does not mind one iota being the villain in Madison Square Garden. He loves it and he feeds off it, and he loves just sticking it to those, trash throwing Knicks fans.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about it last night. Like, he's in the locker room, and I was giving him a hard time about how the game went, and he just looks at me and goes, "It's got to be the shoes." And for young people who don't know what that's referring to, it's to a ad campaign in 1989 for Michael Jordan's Jordan brand shoes that was done by Spike Lee.
No, it was Mars Blackman.
Oh, yes. Okay. And Spike Lee, obviously legendary Knicks fan, got into Reggie Miller famously in the Winning Time doc, which Tyrese said he'd watched about 50 times last night. Tyrese, who showed up last year for Game 7 wearing a hoodie that had the choke on it and sitting at the podium wearing it. I was amused when he was like, "Oh yeah, I thought about doing it at different times." Like, yeah, you'd been preparing to do that for the moment you hit a shot to beat the Knicks at the Garden for well over a year, Tyrese. We know that. It's okay. But you got Reggie Miller sitting there. You've got Larry Johnson with the famous 4-point play sitting there. You got John Starks, Allen Houston, Patrick Ewing, Spike Lee, all these people, all there, all this
Freewell
history.
was probably there too. I didn't see him, but he was probably there.
I think
so
Freewell was
so
there.
much history in the building, so much history in the series. And I again, different players, different styles, but there is a whole lot of Reggie Miller in Tyrese Halliburton.
100%.
And it's a lot of fun to see him, Halliburton, and the fans aren't playing, but Halliburton versus the Madison Square Garden crowd is awesome.
Well, look, he's right in the pantheon, as Jackson, New York area native says. The Knicks did win the series back when Reggie did the choke, which is true. And we'll see if the Knicks win this series. I do think we should get into that.
Which Tyrese referenced last night. He's like, the Knicks did win that series.
He was right on top of it. He knows his history. But the one thing I thought was interesting before we get into the meat of the game and going forward in the series that Tyrese said, I asked him, I was like, look, you guys have now made a habit of doing extraordinary things in these situations, in these playoffs. What is allowing you to do it? And I thought it was interesting. He didn't talk about the pace. He didn't talk about their style of play. He didn't talk about any of that stuff. What he talked about was solely the front office choosing to keep this entire team essentially together after last year's run to the Eastern Conference Finals. And that, as he said, over the past couple of years, between making the run to the in-season tournament championship game, the run they had in the playoffs, the ups and downs they had this year, as you've mentioned for months, Brian, in preparation to have excuses for when your boys lost in Cavs corner. Just kidding. That they've been awesome for months, whatever the record is since beginning of January. They've been one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league. And he said all of those shared experiences over that time we've gone through everything we could go through. Everybody's had to play a part in it at different points. And we have full belief in ourselves that anytime we're in one of these situations, we're going to come back and win. I just thought it was an interesting way to talk about continuity. He even went into how, as we all know, continuity is a thing that doesn't exist in the NBA anymore. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was a very interesting thing for him to immediately go to in talking about why the Pacers keep doing this. Because we've talked a ton about the pace of play, the way they fly around, the way they wear teams out. But I hadn't really thought about the fact that they have so much institutional history together, at least by current NBA standards, and thought it was a interesting thing to think about going forward.
Well, and they've done a great job developing guys too. Nesmith is an unbelievable development story, and look, he's not like he was. I mean, the guy was a late.
He's a lottery pick,
but nobody said, "Oh wow, can you believe the Pacers got Nesmith in that deal for Brogdon?" Like he was
for sure.
Nobody blinked at that. And the dude's just gotten better and better and better. Obviously, last night was just an insane shooting performance by him. But the guy shot 42% from 3 last year, shot 43% from 3 this year. He's become a awesome 3-and-D guy. And Nembhard, early second-round pick, like these role players that they've got that are complementing Halliburton, Siakam, like. There's been some major player development going on with the Pacers.
Talk about looking forward here, Bontemps. I thought the Knicks did a lot of things good in this game. That's how you build a 14-point lead with 4 minutes to go or whatever.
17-point fourth quarter lead.
It was Karl Towns' best game of the last 2 series, all told, in my view. He had, and by the way, the Knicks executed a bunch of really good high pressure offensive plays in both the fourth quarter and overtime. They just couldn't stop the Pacers, which obviously is a problem. But, there was a lot that they did under pressure that was impressive. Like I said, Towns was good. Brunson's had the foul trouble, still had 43 points.
The only thing that stopped Jalen Brunson in this game was the referee's whistle. He got whatever he wanted against the Pacers. And by the way, Aaron Nesmith was fouling him every trip down the court, right? And he's bigger than Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard couldn't guard him last year. Nembhard had a ton of trouble again in this game. Nesmith is bigger, very physical. They put him on him. He did a pretty good job on him, I thought. Jalen still got whatever he wanted. Like, coming into this game, the 3 things that I was looking at, really, were Jalen Brunson. Can they slow him down? They couldn't. Karl Towns and Miles Turner. How's that matchup going to go? Karl Towns destroyed Miles Turner. Miles Turner was not even playing down the stretch of this game. They're playing Thomas Bryant in the fourth quarter of this game. It was he was basically just rendered inoperable for a lot of it. And Mitchell Robinson came in off the bench, dominated the glass. Pacers had no hope of doing anything with him when he was on the court. So there were a ton of things, I think, from a Knicks perspective, where you come out of this game and say, if we just can avoid a catastrophic meltdown to end the game, like if the Knicks just have a normal...
Other than that one minor detail, yes.
Well, yes, obviously this looks vastly different with the Knicks losing the game. But if you stop the game with 3 minutes to go in game one, you're thinking the Knicks are in a pretty comfortable position in this series, considering they were up 2-0 last year before the injuries really set in. That was without Julius Randle. And they were pretty damn comfortable for the vast majority of this game before Aaron Nesmith turned into the Human Torch and 12 other things happened and they lost. So I don't think yes, the Pacers obviously have home court advantage. It's a huge break for them. It's a huge potential momentum swing. But the Denver Nuggets had a crazy comeback and beat the Thunder in game one last round, and then lost by 1,000 in game two and went on to lose the series in 6. To me, I'm expecting. All right, it went 7. I expect this series is going to be 2-2 after game 4 in Indy, and the Knicks will get 2 of the next 3, and we'll see how it goes from there. But I felt for the vast majority of the game there was a lot to be.
Wait a minute.
Hold on. You're making nasty predictions about those Pacers. You got to go to Indy.
Yeah, what nasty prediction is there?
So
there's going to be 2-2 after 4?
You're saying that the Pacers are good, or the Knicks are going to win 2 of the next 3 now, not 2 of the next 3 after it's 4-4. Are you picking the Knicks in 7?
I think the Knicks in 7 before the series started.
Okay.
He's saying it'll be.
But I think it's going to be 2-2 after 4 games. I think the Knicks will win game 2, and I think the 2 teams will split in Indy, and then we'll see what happens. But I came away from it feeling pretty good about where the Knicks are at in the overall picture of the series, obviously setting aside the awfulness of the final couple minutes for them, because I did think that a lot of the main themes to watch coming in all tilted pretty heavily in the Knicks' favor without really a lot of reason to think it should shift back the other way. Like the Pacers didn't have a good match for Karl Towns. He was very comfortable. The Pacers don't have a mix for Jalen Brunson. So
they better be up double figures in the final minute, because 9's not enough.
Well, I mean, they're up 14 with under 3 minutes to go, and that wasn't enough. So,
yeah.
But the Knicks have been the team that has been doing that, although they weren't doing it necessarily in that fashion. But they obviously walked down the Celtics twice. The thing about it is, and I know this is quite obvious, but the Knicks' upset of the Celtics got real when they won Game 2.
Mm-hmm.
The Cavs' real danger of their situation against the Pacers got real when they blew Game 2. Well, the Pacers took it, but the Cavs also blew it. So I know this, again, obvious.
Well, listen, if the Pacers win Game 2, this series is going to, if the Pacers win Game 2, this series is going to be really short.
Yeah. And I would, this momentum thing is in the NBA is fragile. So
yeah, momentum. There are exceptions, but for the most case, I don't believe in momentum game to game in playoff series. Like you hear Dagenalt say it all the time. Each game is its own chapter. Each game's its own story.
I agree. All right. Well, Bontemps, we look forward to your coverage of it. And what time do we think MacMahon will have started this podcast tonight? Let's take a guess. What do we think, Bontemps?
Game's going to start at 8:43 Eastern time, right?
Yeah.
So
what time will this podcast will have started?
I'm guessing 1:35.
Okay.
Eastern time.
Okay.
I'll take the over because I'm going to be obnoxious about it.
Well, then he'll just get booted by the host who's got to get his sleep.
I think we started about 1:20 after game 1.
What was I on time Tuesday morning? Was I on time?
Yes.
All right.
No, I didn't doubt you that.
You were on time, and you were on time in terms of your time, in terms of when you showed up. So we started when you were ready.
No, in the morning, you doofus.
No, it was 7 a.m.
You're talking about the chauffeur service. Well, listen, the important thing is that the Stars got to be properly chauffeured and on time. So you were there.
Yeah.
The Uber was called for 7 a.m. and the Uber arrived at 7 a.m.
I was
5-star rating.
not putting my job in jeopardy.
Damn right. 5-star rating.
All right. Thank you to Jackson for staying up all night. Thank you to Bontemps and MacMahon. Thank you for watching and listening to the Hoop Collective. We will talk to you. We don't know when we'll talk to you. Probably talk to you next on Monday.
Adios, amigos.